This incident took place in India. Bina Thomas, known as Sister Abaya, was born on February 26, 1971, in a humble family in the north of the Kottayam district of Kerala, India. From an early age, the girl showed a great passion for spirituality and service to others, and those close to her described her as intelligent, honest, persistent, and meticulous in every aspect of her life. As a teenager, Bina converted to the Catholic faith and joined the congregation of St. Joseph, founded on July 3rd, 1928, with the aim of helping the disabled and the poor. In 1990, at the age of 19, Bina entered the St. Pius convent, taking the name Abaya, which means peace, serenity, and absence of fear. From the moment of her arrival, the young novice won the respect of her comrades and corps leaders. With her calm nature and willingness to work, Sister Bayer became one of the most prominent believers of this place. She was also known for her inclination to learn. Her cherished dream was to prepare herself as early as possible for the study of the doctrine of the Catholic religion. In early 1992, Sister Abaya was a second-year bachelor student at the Bishop's Women's College, located in the center of Kottayam, which was affiliated with the Mahatma Gandhi University under the guidance of the Catholic Church. Sister divided her time between studies, prayer, and service. She could not imagine that her great dedication to the cause would one day lead her to death and put an end to all her dreams. On the night of March 26, 1992, Abaya shared with her roommate Sister Shirley her worries about an important test she was soon to take at college. Eager to make the most of the next day to study for the test, she asked her roommate to wake her up before dawn around 4 a.m. On March 27, before the sun had yet dispersed the shadows beyond the monastery walls, Sister Shirley gently touched Sister Abaya's shoulder to wake her up exactly as she had asked. Abaya stood up and hurriedly began to get ready to go to the room where she usually studied. She was still feeling sleepy after a long period of studying and prayer, so she decided to go to the kitchen and wash her face with cold water. The sister walked with quick but soft steps so as not to wake the other nuns who were still sleeping at this hour. Sister Shirley also lay down on the bed again to rest a little more before getting up and going about her daily business, not even suspecting that she had seen her neighbor alive for the last time. After dawn, the first person who entered the room of the monastery kitchen witnessed an unusual scene. The refrigerator door was open, and on the floor lay a bottle from which water was still flowing. Next to the bottle lay a small axe, which was usually used to chop wood in the monastery. The most disturbing detail, or rather a woman's shoe, was found under the door of the refrigerator. Rumors of the discovery quickly filled the monastery. After a quick check, it was established that Sister Abaya had disappeared. A 21-year-old nun mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind only a shoe. A search for her began immediately. It soon became known why no one had seen the sister since she left her room. Someone accidentally looked into a well with water located in the garden and saw at the bottom of a stone structure what resembled the body of Sister Abaya. The monastery management immediately contacted the local police department to report the terrible discovery. Several police officers arrived at the scene and unsuccessfully tried to pull the girl's body out of the well. After several unsuccessful attempts, they turned to the firefighters for help, who, with the help of a rope system, managed to pull the damaged body of the sister to the surface. An autopsy performed by a doctor showed that there were large abrasions on the right shoulder and thigh, presumably received during the fall into the well. There were 2 small lacerations above the deceased's right ear, the nature of which remained unknown. In addition, the forensic report showed that there were no signs of sexual violence on the sister's body. In connection with this, the case was registered as an accidental death caused by a fall and drowning. Kottayam police station took over the investigation into the circumstances of the death, which was eventually ruled unnatural. The first report by the police department stated that the death was the result of the deceased's voluntary decision to jump into the well. The official opinion of the authorities was negatively received by both the sister's relatives and the residents of Kottayam, who expressed their dissatisfaction with the course of the investigation. Moreover, some of the parishioners of the monastery were convinced that the sister's death was not a tragic incident. On March 31, 1992, at the initiative of the family of the deceased nun, as well as with the support of various human rights activists, a council was created which began to seek to reopen the case and investigate it as a murder. A few weeks later, on 13th April, the State Police Crime Branch arrived at the scene and began a fresh investigation. After 10 months of continuous work, on 30th January 1993, the investigators submitted the collected materials to the court. The final report on the same case still stated that the novice had committed suicide. Faced with these results, the victim's family, human rights activists, and various nuns filed a complaint and wrote a letter to the then Prime Minister of India. The letter stated that Sister Bayer was murdered and her case was not properly investigated. A year after Sister's death, the efforts of all those who worked to get to the bottom of the incident bore fruit, as the case was reopened and handed over to the Central Bureau of Investigation. As the investigation progressed, new evidence emerged. According to the investigators from the Central Bureau of Investigation, the people who were conducting the case at the initial stages were interested in the death of the young nun, being regarded by everyone as a voluntary end of life. In 2007, the case took a new turn when the police received some information from an unexpected source. A local thief told investigators that early in the morning of March 27, 1992, he sneaked onto the monastery grounds, intending to steal several nuts and remove copper rods from a lightning rod on the roof of the building and then sell them. According to his testimony, he crouched in a secluded place, waiting for the right moment, when suddenly he saw 2 adult priests entering the monastery grounds. After a while, he saw a sister walk by. According to him, he observed for a long time everything that happened next. The testimony obtained from the thief coincided with some versions that had been circulating for a long time during the investigation. According to these versions, 2 respected clergymen were noticed in the case of Sister Baya, namely Fathers Thomas Katur and Joseph Hurarkale. They were both professors of the educational institution where the sister studied. Father Thomas not only taught psychology, but was also known for his work as the Chancellor of the Diocese of Kottayam and the author of many books on theological topics. The news of his alleged involvement in this case was supposed to deal a serious blow to his church career and cause a strong crisis for the Catholic Church itself, which had recently been involved in a series of scandals. The CBI continued its investigation, and eventually the name of the third alleged participant in the crime became known. It was Sister Safi, one of the nuns of the monastery, who was only a few years older than Sister Abea at the time of her death. In July 2007, the court granted the CBI permission to subject 3 suspects to a drug test, also known internationally as a truth serum, a procedure that involves injecting the subject with a chemical substance that makes them semi-unconscious, during which they say whatever is on their mind. The tests were conducted on August 3, 2007, but the results did not reveal any new facts that would clarify the situation. Soon after, circumstances came to light that pointed to possible falsification of the test results. On November 19, 2008, 16 years after the death of Sister Abaya, authorities arrested Fathers Thomas and Jose, as well as Sister Safi. A few days after their arrest, the assistant inspector who prepared the very first report on the progress of the initial investigation was found dead. The police stated that he committed suicide by cutting the arteries in his wrists and taking poison. In his suicide note, it was said that the Central Bureau of Investigation employees were pressuring him. Representatives of the Central Bureau of Investigation, in turn, claimed that it was he who destroyed the evidence and thus reclassified the case as suicide. According to the investigation, Sister Abaya, a moment before her death, went to the kitchen without making a sound. Then she took a bottle of liquid from the refrigerator and went to the sink to wet her face with cold water. Then Sister witnessed a scene that left her in shock. She was so shocked by what she saw that the plastic bottle slipped out of her hands and fell to the floor, spilling some of its contents. The young novice unwittingly witnessed a secret, intimate meeting between the priests we have already mentioned and Sister Safi. The police report suggested that upon noticing Sister Abaya, they were afraid that she would give them away. As a result, Father Thomas attacked the novice and grabbed her by the neck, trying to close her mouth. At this time, Sister Safi took an axe, which was always in the kitchen, and dealt several sharp but not very strong blows to the victim's head. The authorities believe that after this attack, the sister lost consciousness and collapsed on the kitchen floor. Then the attackers carried her body out of the monastery and threw it in the well. The exact role of Father Jose in this incident is unknown, although it is believed that he helped the others get rid of the body. As a result, the attackers quickly fled the crime scene, unaware that someone was watching them from the shadows. The silent witness of this murder was none other than the thief, who years later told about everything. Thus, 2 priests and a nun were accused of murder and destruction of evidence. Soon, a long and complicated trial began in March 2018. The court acquitted Father Jose, citing that there was not enough evidence against him. Father Thomas and Sister Safi remained the only defendants. During the lengthy trial, rather disturbing facts emerged, such as the operation to restore the hymen, through which the accused underwent attempts to prove her innocence, and the absence of sexual contacts. These details became known thanks to a folder with documents that confirm that the operation was carried out in the monastery hospital with the consent of the religious authorities. By the way, the folder itself allegedly anonymously came into the hands of investigators. It is worth noting that virginity tests were not carried out on the nun, since the very thought of this violates the privacy of the defendant. On August 26, 2019, the much-awaited trial of Sister Abaya's murder began, given the religious and even political implications of the case, as well as the circumstances of the victim's death. The trial against Father Thomas and Sister Sefi became a constant front-page news item in the Indian press. During the hearings held by the court, almost all the prosecution witnesses changed their testimony and defended the defendants. The only person who did not succumb to the pressure was the thief who witnessed the crime, who remained with his original testimony. On December 22, 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, 28 years after the body of Sister Abaya was found, the court found Father Thomas Otar, 69, and Sister Sefi, 55, guilty of murder with aggravating circumstances. The clergy were sentenced to life imprisonment and a fine of 500,000 rupees. After hearing the verdict, Sister Sefi burst into tears, while Father Thomas maintained the same expression on his face that he had shown throughout the trial. The nuns gathered in the courtroom also cried, and after the verdict was announced, they rushed to hug the priest and sister. During the sentencing hearing, the defendants asked the court for clemency on the grounds that they suffer from serious illnesses. It was reported that Father Thomas was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and Sister Sefi suffered from thrombosis deep veins. Among other things, the nun's lawyer added that she had to take care of her elderly parents, but the pleas of the defendants were not supported by the court, which announced the punishment after listening to them. Leaving the court, Father Thomas told reporters that he was not guilty. According to him, everything was happening according to God's plan, and he had nothing to fear. Sister Sefi, for her part, chose to remain silent. Unfortunately, Sister Abaya's parents, who continued to demand the truth for many years, died in 2016, never having seen justice in this case. Despite the guilty verdict, Sister Abaya's case was far from over. In June 2022, Indian media reported that the defendants' lawyers had managed to appeal the verdict and secure their temporary release on bail pending the trial at the trial court. The defense's epilogue said that the trial was riddled with irregularities and the verdict was based on the testimony of an unreliable witness. The release of the prime suspects in the murder of a young nun left a bitter taste in the victims' relatives, as well as all those who fought for justice in this case. More than 30 years have passed since that early morning when Sister Abaya, who dreamed of nothing but serving others, lost her life under mysterious circumstances. The final chapter in this case, which has cast a shadow on the Catholic Church in India, has not yet been written. Our video has come to an end. If you want to see more interesting content, subscribe to our channel and press the bell to not miss the new release.